Dear students, once again I would like to welcome all of you to a new session of the history class. Today we are going to continue with the same chapter, chapter 6, Mahatma Gandhi and the National Movement, part 4. Do you remember what were the main points which we were discussing in the last class? I mean part 3. If you want to get a very clear picture about this class or what we are going to discuss today, you need to remember those points which we were discussing in the last class. So I would like to grab your attention to those points which we were discussing in the last class. First of all, we were seeing the impact of non-cooperation movement. Secondly, we were seeing the factors led to the civil disobedience movement, and I believe that you are very clear about what is non-cooperation movement. And under the title Factors Led to the Civil Disobedience Movement, we have seen two important elements or factors which led to the beginning of civil disobedience movement. First one is Simon Commission and second one Declaration of Poona Pact. But today we are going to discuss about what is meant by civil disobedience movement. We haven't gone to the depth of this topic. That means we haven't seen what is civil disobedience movement. So before we move, let's see what all points we are going to discuss or deal with today. First of all, we are going to see what is meant by civil disobedience movement. Then the other one of the important event which took place in the history of India, that is Dandi March. Third one, round table conferences. There were 3 different round table conferences. So we are going to discuss about one of the point is a round table conference. And finally, we are going to discuss about Gandhi-Irvin Pact. So these are the 4 different elements which we are going to discuss today. So without wasting time, let's move to the topic. First of all, what is civil disobedience movement? What is, or how can you define civil disobedience movement? It is an attempt to stop the administration by breaking some specific rules and regulations, or in other words, making the administration a standstill by breaking some specific rules and regulations. Or we can say that make the administration inactive. They will be not able to function. And how they will become inactive? It will be possible through breaking some rules and regulations. I'll explain it to you. There are more than 130 crores of people are there in India. If these people are not ready to pay the taxes, do you think it is possible for the government to function smoothly? Because tax is one of the main source of income of a government. So in case if the people are not ready to pay the taxes, then how the government can function? It's a violation of the law, because as per the rules and regulation of our country, we have to pay taxes for different things like land taxes, revenues, for the purchasing of things from the shops, or for certain services. So for all this we are paying taxes. And even we are very much aware about GST. It's a tax. So if people are not paying taxes, how the government will get income? So it is breaking some specific rules and regulations. So civil disobedience means attempt to stop the administration by breaking some specific rules and regulations. Okay, now let's move to the other elements related to the civil disobedience movement. It started in 1930 because Congress committee met Gandhiji at Sabarmati Ashram in 1930 and has given all the powers to start a movement or civil disobedience movement against the British. So when Gandhiji has got that much support from the Indian National Congress or the Congress committee, Gandhiji gave a warning to the British government. And this warning is being known as 11-point ultimatum. He has demanded the certain points. And demands like people should not be treated in such a way, the violation of, like we have already seen, the people of India should have the freedom of printing presses or running presses, publish newses, and people should have the right to carry weapons like Europeans, and people should be treated equally. There should be justice for Indians as well from the court. So there were different demands. So he had put forward 11-point ultimatum, 11 demands introduced by Gandhiji, and he has given time for, but there was no any positive response from the British, and there he understood that there is no meaning in waiting for their response. So that's why by 1930 he declared civil disobedience movement through a famous act, and that act is being known as Dandi March. So started with the famous Dandi March. Dandi March started in 1930 March 12th from Sabarmati Ashram to Dandi. Dandi is one of the villages in Gujarat. It's a seashore, and he has selected this Dandi to violate an important rule made by the British. So by 1930 March 12th, Dandi March started from Sabarmati Ashram to Dandi. You might have seen in one of the notes which were being used by India, or our old notes. In one of the sides of the note you might have seen the depiction of, or the image of Dandi March. At the front, Mahatma Gandhi with a walking stick in his hand, and a number of people who were following him. A symbol of Dandi March. So just imagine how much importance has got this particular movement in the history of India. Again, so they have started from Sabarmati on March 12th, 1913, and they reached at Dandi and violated this particular salt law on 6th April 1930. So this is being known as Dandi March. Then some other elements related to Dandi March. Why he broke the salt law? There were some reasons for that. Why he has go for salt law? Because we know that salt is not such a costly thing. Then why he has to violate this tax of salt law? Because salt tax law affected all the sections of the society. That means whether a person is rich or poor, it doesn't matter. But he has to pay tax. Especially this tax affected the poor people. Because if we are preparing food at home without adding salt, how it will be? Will it become tasty? I don't think so. So we are adding salt to taste. So without salt, how it will become tasty? So all the different sections, all the sections of the society, they were using salt, and when the British government enforced taxes on salt, it affected especially the poor people. Okay, and again, in order to support all the sections of the society, Gandhiji has chosen the violation of salt tax law, and through the Dandi March he has violated it. Thus began the civil disobedience movement in the history of India. And later, now we are moving to the next part of this particular chapter, that is Round Table Conference, another important event which took place in India due to non-cooperation movement and civil disobedience movement. Especially here we are going to discuss about with related to, or here we are going to discuss these factors along with civil disobedience movement. Do you remember what were the different factors which led to the civil disobedience movement? First one is Simon Commission. Second one, Declaration of Poona Swaraj. In the case of Simon Commission, we are going to revise a few number of points which we have discussed in the last class. When we were discussing about Simon Commission, I have told you Congress was not ready to accept Simon Commission. They just boycotted Simon Commission. Do you remember why? It was because there were no Indians, or there were no representatives from India in the commission, in the Simon Commission. Second thing, the Simon Commission recommended certain points to the British government, like there should not be diarchy, then freedom of movement, etc., etc. Some of the recommendations made by Simon Commission to the British administration. The Indian National Congress was not happy with those recommendations made by the Simon Commission. So that's why they were not happy. They were not ready to cooperate with the Simon Commission. As a result, when Simon Commission came in India, they boycotted Simon Commission and they have declared hartal all over India. So when the British administration, they realized without the support of Congress it's not possible to run India for a long time again, they have made some compromises. In order to have those compromises, they have arranged a conference, and this conference is being known as a Round Table Conference. And there are 3 Round Table Conferences. So the first Round Table Conference, which took place from 1930 November 12th to 1931st January 19, held in London. But in the case of the first Roundtable Conference, there were no representatives from Indian National Congress. They just boycotted the conference due to the Simon Commission. So that's why I have told you in the first part of this topic that what was the role of Simon Commission in the Roundtable Conference. But other political parties were well represented. There were a number of political parties and associations throughout our country, and they have given their representations, or they have sent their representatives to this Roundtable Conference. But at the same time, British was not happy with that. They understood it's useless to have meeting without Congress. Again, I would like to connect this particular point with the previous class which we have already discussed. What was that? Congress act as an organizer. They have acted as a leader. They just organized the people to fight against the British. So if the Congress is not being convinced, there is no use of having this kinds of roundtable conference. So that's why the British, they really understood the interest, the role of the Congress in India. That's why they understood that it is useless to have a meeting without Congress. So this is about the first roundtable conference. Now the British has to go for certain consideration. They have to go for certain compromise. So in order to make the Congress representatives take part in the roundtable conference, they have arranged a second roundtable conference. Okay, so first roundtable conference is over. There were no representatives from the Congress was there in the first roundtable conference. So they have arranged a second roundtable conference. But how the Congress will take part in the second roundtable conference? For that, they have introduced a new ideology, that is a pact between Mahatma Gandhi and Irvin. Irvin was the Viceroy of India during that time. So here we are going to see, before we move to the second roundtable conference, we need to know what is Gandhi-Irvin Pact, a treaty which is signed between Gandhi and Irvin, the Viceroy of India during that time. Okay, now we are going to see the main points related to Gandhi-Irvin Pact. And there was a reason behind the treaty, that is, a few number of Congress leaders or the national movement leaders, they have visited Gandhiji, and Gandhiji was in jail during that time. They visited Gandhiji and tried to convince him, and finally he was ready to go for certain negotiation to some compromises, because he was having a concern that Satyagraha could not be suppressed. As a result, there was a treaty between Gandhi and Irvin. Irvin was the Viceroy of India during that time. So let's move to the main elements of the Gandhi-Irvin Pact, and it is signed in 1931st March. So here we are going to see what is the exact agreements between Gandhiji and Irvin, or between Indian National Congress and the British administration. Congress have put forward certain demands to the British. First of all, withdraw all ordinances and end persecutions, which means the British people have introduced a number of ordinances against the interest of the people of India. And the Congress leaders, they demanded that withdraw all those ordinances. And second one, end all persecutions. Number of leaders and other peoples who were supporting the Indian national movement were imprisoned, and those kinds of persecutions and treatment should be banned or it should be withdrawn. So that was the first demand of the Congress. Second one, release all political prisoners except those guilty. If a political leader has committed a crime or did something wrong, let him be in the jail. Rest of the leaders should be released from the jail. So it was the second demand. Third one, peaceful picketing of liquor shops and cloth shops, especially foreign cloth shops. And we have seen when we were studying about Chauri Chaura incidents, the particular incident which resulted in withdrawing the non-cooperation movement. We have seen there because people have picketed the liquor shops, so police set fire on them, and in return the protesters, they have set fire on police station. So all those things we have already seen. So here they have demanded they should get permission for picketing foreign liquor shops and foreign cloth shops. And next one, restore the confiscated lands, especially the lands which were having good production, like huge acres of land, maybe estates and other such kinds of lands which were under the control of the British. They told, restore those lands to the owners. And next and final one, free collection of salt by persons near sea coast. A person who is living near to the seashore must get the permission to extract salt freely from the sea water. And these were the different demands of the Congress which they have put forward to the British administration, or which they have signed between Indian National Congress and the British. At the same time, the British people also have made their own demands. First of all, suspend civil disobedience movement. Just imagine, as I have already told you, if the people striking against the government by violating certain rules and regulations, they are not ready to pay the tax. Just an example, they are not ready to pay the taxes. For the British, it will be a big headache. So that's why they have demanded that the leaders should suspend civil disobedience movement. Second one, participate in the second roundtable conference. I have already told you they have arranged a second roundtable conference, and they were thinking that how can they enforce the Indian National Congress leaders, especially Mahatma Gandhi, to take part in the roundtable conference. So here they have put forward this particular demand. What was that? If they have to agree with the demands of the Congress, or if they have to sign this treaty, delegates from the Indian National Congress should take part in the second roundtable conference. And finally, not to press for investigation into police excesses. So finally everything got ready, and the British administration, they have started the second roundtable conference, and it was from 1931 September 7th to December 1st 1931. In the same year, in 1931 September to December 1st of the same year it had happened, and attended by Gandhiji on the basis of Gandhi-Irvine Pact. So as per the treaty which is signed between the British and the Indian National Congress, Gandhiji attended the second roundtable conference. And there were a few number of issues which raised in the conference, in the second roundtable conference. First of all, the issue was about the minority, issue on minorities. They demanded separate electorates for Indian Christians, Anglo Indians, and so on. Not just one single group of people, all the different sectors of the society demanded for their own minority groups, like Muslims, Christians, Anglo Indians, and all other depressed groups, suppressed groups. They have started to ask about the rights of minorities. So it was one of the main issue which raised in the conference. Second, British government refused to grant immediate domain status to India. British government was not ready to agree the demands of the leaders. Domain status means to run to form a government with less power. They will be under the British. And finally, the most important thing which disappointed Gandhiji, the question of giving responsible government to India was disappeared. There was not even a single mentioning, there was not even a single concern about making a responsible government of India. So that's why by the end of the meeting or end of the conference, Gandhiji has got fully disappointed and he came back to India in such a state that he was not having any hope. So this is what were the main incidents which took place in the second roundtable conference, especially issue on minorities, and British government refused to grant immediate domain status to India, and the question of giving a responsible government in India was disappeared. So these were the main issues raised in the conference, and none of those questions were answered satisfactorily. So it was the main issues of the points which discussed in the second roundtable conference. Since the second roundtable conference was not a successful one, finally it led to the conference, that is third roundtable conference. Since the second one was not a successful one, it led to the beginning of a third roundtable conference. It was from 1932 November 17 to December 24. From November 17, 1932 to December 24, 1932. It was attended by 46 delegates from India, from different groups from the different associations and organizations. Altogether, 46 delegates took part in this third roundtable conference. In this third roundtable conference, Dr. Ambedkar demanded for separate electorate for the depressed class. There were a number of groups who were not happy with the different political implementations done by Indians as well as by the British. So they were not happy with the political conditions of India, and that's why they have demanded, especially under the leadership of Dr. Ambedkar, they have demanded for separate electorate for the depressed class. As a result, Prime Minister of Britain, he had made an award, an announcement of an award. This award is being known as Communal Award. What is meant by Communal Award? It is permitting a separate representation to the depressed class. Depressed class means Muslims, Sikhs, Anglo Indians, Indian Christians, Hindus, and all the different depressed classes were having a separate representation. Just imagine if there are 100 people in a legislature, 50 people will be elected and the rest of the 50 people will be from this representation. Like we are having the reservation for the backward classes right now from each group. So same here, from Muslims there will be a number of representatives, from Sikhs there will be a number of representatives, and from Anglo Indians there will be some representatives, and from Indian Christian there will be some representatives, and for the depressed class or from the depressed class there will be some representatives. So in such a way there will be separate reservation or representation to the legislature from different depressed class. So this particular award or declaration of the Prime Minister of Britain in 1932, that means in the third roundtable conference, is being known as Communal Award. So dear students, I hope you are very clear with this three different roundtable conference along with Gandhi-Irwin Pact. Now it was not an end of this particular conference. That means there were some after effects of that. First one, Gandhiji, he was not happy with this particular reservation or representation. He opposed it. And there was a reason behind it, because as I have told you, he was not happy with this particular communal award declared by the Prime Minister of the Britain, because he knew that it will disintegrate the Indian society. So in order to bring everything into the right track, Gandhiji started a very strong fasting. As a result, in September 25th, 1932, a treaty signed between Congress and Ambedkar, and this particular treaty is being known as Poona Act. As per the pact, there will be reservation of seats for the depressed classes in the provincial legislatures within the general electorate, and not by creating a separate electorate. I hope you understood. Which means, as per the Poona Pact, there will be reservation for the depressed class, but within the provincial legislature, and it will be elected through the general election, but there will be no separate electorate for the depressed class. So this particular treaty which made between the Congress and the Ambedkar is being known as Poona Pact. Okay, and with this treaty or with this Poona Pact, Gandhiji has stopped his fasting, because he was not having an intention to stop this reservation, but he was having a concern that there should not be separate electorate, which means giving reservation of seats for the depressed class in provincial legislatures, but not creating separate electorate, because he was knowing if separate electorate is being created, then finally it will be resulting in dividing country into number of small countries, or dividing India into number of small countries. So that's why he has demanded for, he agreed with the reservation of seats, but it is in the provincial legislature, but not by creating separate electorate. I hope you haven't got the clear picture. It is something like, take the example of Kashmir and India. For the Kashmir, they have got separate electorate, they have got separate constitution, they have got separate administrative structure. That's why for Kashmir and India there were different rules and regulations, but still Kashmir was under India. But now our present government has cancelled all those provisions, and they have brought Kashmir under the same constitution which we are following right now. So that's why Gandhiji was having a dream that there should not be separate electorate, but there can be reservation of seats for the depressed classes. So these are the main points which I would like to share with you today. With this we are just winding up today's class, and it is not only with this we are completing this chapter also. We are going to begin, or in the upcoming classes we will be going to discuss a new chapter, a new topic, and I hope you will revise and learn all the elements and points related to this chapter very well. So till meeting in the next class, I would like to sign off and thank you.